حي على الفلاح.
And in this story, Hanzalah was facing something inside that was burning inside, something he couldn't understand why. And he met with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And it was as if Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu felt that something was wrong. So he asked him, "How are you doing, Hanzalah?" And he said to him very clearly and very straightforward, he said, "Nafaqa Hanzalah. Hanzalah has become a hypocrite." Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he knows who Hanzalah is, from the great Sahabah, the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Subhanallah, how can you say that?" Hanzalah radiallahu anhu, he said, when we are with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he describes for us the Jannah and the hellfire, it's as if we can see it with our own eyes. And then when we go away from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and we tend to our business and to our wives and to our children, these things slip our minds. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he said, the same exact thing happens to me. So he said, let's go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and ask him about this. So when they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hanzalah told him the same thing. Nafaqa Hanzalah, that Hanzalah has become a hypocrite. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, what happened to you? He said, when we're with you, Ya Rasulullah, and you remind us of the Jannah and you remind us of the hellfire, it's as if we can see it. It's as if we can see it with our own eyes. And then when we leave you and we go away, we tend to our children and to our wives and to our business, these things slip our minds. So the Prophet ﷺ said, swearing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by He whose hands my soul is in, he said that if you were to remain on the same level that you are when you're with me, and you were to remain busy in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said the angels would come to you and they would shake your hands as you were laying on your beds and as you were walking down the streets. And then he said to Hanzalah, "Walakin Hanzalah, that you need time to devote to religious matters and time to devote to your worldly affairs as well, to create a balance." And when he said to him alayhi salatu wasalam, if you were to be like this all of the time, this high level of iman, the angels would come and shake your hands, meaning this is not the nature of the human being. This is the nature of the angels who are 100% 24/7 in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not the nature of the human. So what do we gain, my dear brothers and sisters, and what do we benefit? We have with us today, inshallah ta'ala, in this khutbah, 15 different benefits and principles that we learn from this hadith. First of all, the importance of checking up on our friends to make sure they're okay, especially when we see that something might be wrong. Abu Bakr, as if he felt Hanzalah, he wasn't in his normal state. He said to him, "How are you, Hanzalah? What's going on? What's wrong?" And also from the things that we benefit is the importance when you have something wrong inside, something that's burning you, something that's bugging you, something you can't get over, you're facing some difficulties, that you go to those who know, you go to your friends, you go to your brothers, and you speak with them in order to get it off your chest. How many people inside, they're burning up, they're facing difficulties, they're depressed, and all they need to do is sit down and talk to one of their brothers. Inshallah, they'll find the solution. So the Sahabah radiallahu anhum, in this story, they taught us about these principles. That when you hold something in, it can be dangerous. Let it out. Tell your brother. And then we gain as well the humbleness of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, who didn't race to answer, who didn't look down upon his brother. In fact, he told him, I find the same thing. I have the same problem. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, look at the status that he has in Islam. And yet he says, I find the same thing, I have the same problem. And this story teaches us one of the things about the Sahabah is that they would always look down upon themselves, always accuse themselves when it came to their iman. And Hanzalah is saying, Nafaqa Hanzalah. Hanzalah has become a hypocrite. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he has a testimony from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that he will be a shaheed. When he goes down a path, the shaitan fears him and he takes another path. All of this, but yet he's still not sure about his iman. He went to Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman, the one who had the secret of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the only Sahabi, Hudhayfa, who knew the names of the munafiqeen. One by one, he knew who they were. Umar ibn Khattab, he went to him and said, Hudhayfa, did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mention me from them? He has all these guarantees in the other hadith, but yet he's still not sure. And he said, no, he didn't mention you, Umar, and I won't tell anybody else after you. This is the Sahaba. And Sahih al-Bukhari, that the tabi'i from the followers of the companions, Ibn Abi Mulaika, rahimahullah ta'ala, said all of them, he said, I met 30 of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of them fear nifaq, hypocrisy on himself or for himself. He fears that he might be a hypocrite. And he's the Sahabi. He's the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 30 of them. He said, all 30 that I met, all of them had the same fear. Those Sahaba weren't sure because they knew the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they felt they weren't fulfilling their rights as they should. What about us? How should we feel about our iman? Also, this story teaches us two very important principles when it comes to asking questions about the deen. First of all, that we must ask about that which we don't know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran commanded us, ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. This is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the other principle, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he didn't come and say, well, I have the answer to this question, let me think of something. He immediately took him to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't know the answer. Al-Imam Malik ibn Anas, who we talk about the Maliki madhab, Imam Malik. People traveled to him to ask him questions. They had 48 questions. 32 of them, he said, I don't know. And that's why the scholars of Islam, they said, Allahu alam, Allah knows best is half of knowledge. This story teaches us, my dear brothers and sisters, the importance of keeping good company and the impact and the effect that that has upon us. Look how they felt when they were with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The importance of being in good company. This story reminds us of the importance of that we hold ourselves to account. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us in the Quran, O you who have believed, fear Allah and let every soul look at that which it puts forth for tomorrow. The account of good deeds and the account of bad deeds. All of it to be weighed in front of you. This story also teaches us the true nature of Iman. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he mentioned that if you were to stay in that state, what would happen? The angels would come to you. They would shake your hands because it's something not natural to be 24/7 ibadah, worship. You have to create a balance. So what is the nature of our iman? As the scholars of Islam said, iman is made up of three essential components. It starts with the belief in our hearts, and then the testimony of the tongue. That's the second thing. And then it shows up in our actions. If these three things are missing or one of them is missing, you don't have true iman. And then the scholars said about this iman that's made up of these three components, that it increases and it decreases. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, from the lessons that we gain from this hadith, the importance of the description, a precise, detailed description of the hellfire and of Jannah, and the impact that this description has on our actions. Hanzalah radiallahu anhu, he said, we hear the description, detailed description, he said, it's as if we can see it. That's how detailed it was. And as we end the khutbah today, we need to reflect on two very important lessons at the end of this hadith. When the Prophet ﷺ described or prescribed for Hanzalah in two little words, when he said sa'atun wa sa'a, an hour and an hour, meaning an hour you have some time, you devote time to your religion and being obedient in your religion, and you devote time to your worldly affairs. This hadith teaches us the importance of creating that balance, and that the only way that you can truly hold on to your deen is if you have that balance. Because there's no way you can go 100% in the deen, just all religious affairs, it doesn't work. The Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, he said that no one tries to take all of the deen, overwhelms himself with the deen, except for that he cannot continue in that state. It's not possible. That's why the Prophet ﷺ told us in this hadith, sa'atun wa sa'a, an hour for this and an hour for that. And the Sahabah themselves, radiallahu anhum, they used to say that we would go out for the nuzha. They would have an outing. They go out, they take the time off. The objective of the weekend in the business world is what? So you can go back and you can work efficiently. The same thing with your ibadah. The only way you can continue, the only way that you can stay strong is if you create that balance. And we know this as well from the hadith of Salman radiallahu an with Abu Darda, when he saw him not paying attention to the affairs of his family, and he told him that indeed your Lord has a right upon you, because he was devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wasn't focusing on his family affairs. He was trying to get to Jannah. That your Lord has a right upon you, and you yourself has a right, you have a right upon yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your body. You have to be in good health. You have a right upon yourself. And your family has a right upon you as well. So give each one his deserving right. Abu Darda radiallahu an, the next day he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, asked him about this, that your Lord has a right upon you, and yourself and your family. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Sadaqa Salman. Salman radiallahu an has spoken the truth. Creating that balance. And the last thing that we gain from this amazing story, the true meaning of sa'a and sa'a. Many of the deviant people, many of the shayateen al-ins, the human shaitans, they use this hadith to make people fall into sin. Say, a little haram, a little halal. They say, enjoy life, do a little bit of haram, and do a little bit of halal, and mix it up. Astaghfirullah, if that's the meaning of that. So beware of that.